Right, Madam Clerk, I think we are ready. I will call this meeting to order, the Finance and Economic Development Standing Committee meeting to order. Madam Clerk, if you would assist us in the chamber emergency evacuation.
Upon activation of the emergency alarm signal, all persons should immediately exit the building. Please use the exits to the left, right, or front of the council chamber or the east or west stairwell outside of the rear doors of the chamber. Do not use elevators or escalators. After exiting the building, proceed down 9th Street and enter the assembly area located in the former public safety building parking lot. Able persons should assist visually and hearing impaired visitors with exiting the building. Persons wishing to speak during the public comment period or public hearings are generally allowed 3 minutes to speak. Persons appearing before the committee are not allowed to campaign for public office, promote private business ventures, use language of a personal nature, which also demeans any person, including comments directed at public officials or staff members that are not related to their official duties, or address the question staff members directly. All questions will be directed to the committee chair. Failure to adhere to the guidelines may result in speakers forfeiting any remaining time and further disciplinary action as necessary, which could include barring from attendance at future meetings of the committee for a period of 6 months. Madam Chair, this concludes the announcements.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll move to the public comment period.
Is there anyone here present today that would like to speak about items not on today's agenda? Seeing none, the public comment period is closed.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Approval of the minutes.
The minutes to be approved are from the March 3rd, 2025 Finance and Economic Development Standing Committee special meeting and the March 19th, 2025 Finance and Economic Development Standing Committee meeting minutes. If there are no amendments or corrections, then those meeting minutes stand approved as presented. Those minutes have been approved.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ms. Jones, motion to continue agenda item number 1, please.
So moved.
Second. Madam Clerk.
The committee is voting on the motion to continue item 1, ordinance 2025-032, to the May 21st Finance and Economic Development Standing Committee meeting. Vice Chair Jones.
Aye.
Chair Robertson.
Aye.
That motion has been approved.
Okay, Madam Clerk, we're going to take agenda item number 2 and then items 3, 4, 5, and 6, we're going to take as a block.
Item 2, ordinance 2025-056, to authorize the CAO to execute a Caritas grant agreement between the city and Caritas for the purpose of funding the creation and implementation of a peer recovery specialist training program. That paper is before the committee.
There's someone from the administration that will speak to this paper.
Good afternoon, Chair Robertson, Vice Chair Jones, Council Member Trammell, Council Member Gibson. I am Mike Fatula. I am the opioid response coordinator for the city of Richmond. I'm here to talk about this agenda item 2, which is a grant for $198,380 for peer recovery specialist training program within Caritas. Peer recovery specialists provide substance use disorder and mental health non-clinical person-centered strengths-based wellness-focused services to support clients in entering sustainable recovery. Peer recovery specialists are an evidence-based practice. Implementing peers is an evidence-based practice and considered allowable use from the National Opioid Settlement Funds. The funding for this program comes from the National Opioid Settlement Fund, which is the direct distribution that the city receives from companies that settled with the Commonwealth of Virginia, such as distributors, manufacturers, Janssen, CVS, Walmart, Walgreens, places like that. There is no fiscal impact to the city. So this funding is from opioid settlement funds, but there is no fiscal impact to the city. In fact, the fiscal impact to the city would be positive in that providing peer recovery specialists as an evidence-based practice is likely to result in cost savings. For every $1 spent, in prevention and treatment services. You can expect to see a $4 cost savings in healthcare costs and a $7 savings in criminal justice costs. The other half of my opioid response team is Jason Alley, who is also a peer recovery specialist. So the two of us, a therapist and a peer recovery specialist, make up the city's opioid response team. Again, this is a core strategy from the National Opioid Settlement Funds. Do you have any questions?
Questions? No questions, but thank you. One of the benefits, I appreciate the benefit of the reduction in costs as it relates to health services, but the real benefit is the fact that we have an opportunity to save a lot of people's lives. And right now, I think opioid, from the records that we've seen, is the leading cause of death over homicides and other things that we're concerned about in the city. So thank you very much for the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Chair Robinson.
Madam Clerk, we have a public hearing on this paper.
Is there anyone here present that would like to speak in support of item 2? Please state your name for the record.
My name is Benjamin Carr. Good afternoon, council members. I'm a person in recovery, long-term recovery from opioid use disorder. I also am a lifelong Richmonder. I was born and raised here. Having had that lived experience, I also have the privilege and honor of being a certified peer recovery specialist, as well as the director of recovery services for Caritas. I'm blessed to be in a position where I get to be of service to people just like me who are recovering from this disease, and also to be a trainer of those who are the next generation of delivery of services to those in need. With the Peer Recovery Specialist Academy that we're developing, we plan on producing a minimum of 40 peers over the next year, and in the following year, have a peer community engagement component where we can put boots on the ground so we can deliver services to those in need who may be in pre-contemplative or contemplative stages of change, looking to get connected to resources and services here in the Richmond area. I can speak solely from my experience that there is no greater connection than peer-to-peer services. The therapeutic value of one addict helping another is without parallel. This enables us not only to provide a service multiplier, but really an exponential impact on our community, and then also engage in the services for tomorrow. So thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else here that would like to speak in support of item 2? Is there anyone here that would like to speak in opposition of item 2? Seeing none, the public comment period is now closed. Bring it back to the body.
There are no one on virtual. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a recommendation to forward to council for approval.
Thank you. And I'll second that. And again, we look forward to working with you very closely. We had a very long planning commission meeting last night, and one of the applicants that was before us was interested in setting up a treatment facility to assist those that have addictions. And we extended an invitation to him to work more closely with our city and with you, with your office, to look at ways as to how we can continue to collaborate together. Call for the vote, Madam Clerk.
The committee is voting on the motion to forward item 2, ordinance 2025-056, to council with the recommendation to approve. Vice Chair Jones?
Aye.
Chair Robinson? That motion has been approved.
Clerk, we'll move to the block.
Right. Items 3, 4, 5, and 6 will be read in a block. I'll begin with item 3. Item 3, ordinance 2025-064, to authorize the CAO to execute a McShin Foundation grant agreement between the city and McShin Foundation for the purpose of funding peer recovery specialist services to combat the opioid crisis in the city. Item 4, ordinance 2025-065, to authorize the CAO to execute a St. Luke Legacy Center grant agreement between the city and the St. Luke Legacy Center for the purpose of funding a peer recovery specialist services to combat the opioid crisis in the city. Item 5, ordinance 2025-066, to authorize the CAO to execute an Atlantic Outreach Grant agreement between the city and Atlantic Outreach Group, Inc. for the purpose of funding peer recovery specialist services to combat the opioid crisis in the city. Item 6, ordinance 2025-067, to authorize the CAO to execute an Opportunity Alliance and Reentry of Richmond grant agreement between the city and Opportunity Alliance and Reentry for the purpose of funding peer recovery specialist services to combat the opioid crisis in the city. Those papers are before the committee.
Thank you.
Good afternoon again, Chair Robertson, Vice Chair Jones, Councilmember Trammell, and Councilmember Gibson. Mike Fatula, the opioid response coordinator for the city of Richmond. And I'm going to talk a little bit longer about these. These are four papers, but I want to highlight especially what Ben talked about. And so these papers in front of you requesting authorization for the chief administrative officer to sign grant contracts with those four nonprofits. And this represents a critical effort from the city to respond to the opioid crisis. The award we originally received an award of $250,000 from the Virginia Opioid Abatement Authority, and it granted us, the intent was to provide subgrants to integrate peer recovery specialists into areas such as emergency response, detox treatment, recovery, and other facilities to enhance the continuum of care for individuals affected by opioid use disorder. Subgrantee organizations have been chosen through a competitive and transparent application process. A peer recovery specialist is a self-identified person with lived experience with a mental health and/or substance use disorder who is in successful and ongoing recovery from mental health and/or substance use disorders. Peer recovery specialists use their lived experience to support another person's recovery journey. Investing in peer recovery specialists is an evidence-based approach to opioid remediation. It's also one of the allowable opioid uses of the opioid settlement funds. As a mental health and substance use disorder clinician myself for 15 years, 10 of those last years I've been a licensed clinician, I have personally observed firsthand how peers can build rapport with a client much faster than I could in therapy sessions. In these rapport building moments, it is a critical aspect. The support a peer provides to someone who is ready to make the step into treatment and recovery. A peer recovery specialist meets the person there at that point in time and provides non-clinical recovery support because, frankly, they've been there before and they've seen the other side. Countless times over and over again, I've heard positive stories from the impact that peers have had on the lives of those they support. But the most important thing peers do is provide hope. They provide hope that people can and do recover. They provide hope that there is life beyond substance use disorder, and they provide hope that life after addiction is possible. These grants are intended to support projects centered around the integration and expansion of peer recovery services within the city of Richmond. And all to some varying degrees build, broaden, and strengthen the peer recovery specialist network in the city with the ultimate goal of decreasing fatal overdoses, improving the lives of those with opioid use disorder, and most importantly, providing hope. Do you have any questions?
Yes, the organizations that you're speaking of, St. Luke, we're all familiar with McSwin. Atlantic Outreach Alliance.
Atlantic Outreach Group, yeah.
Are these new organizations that we're doing work with?
They're new, some of them are new, some of them aren't. To my knowledge, I mean, this is the first time we've granted any opioid funds to these groups. But they are all eligible nonprofits. We went through, we did a request for funding. We sent it out, we screened, and we got great applications, great applicants. You know, one of the worst parts I think of a person that screens grants is having to tell a good applicant they didn't get it because they didn't score high enough. So we went with the top 5 highest scores.
Okay. Is there any outreach on your part, your office part, to connect with others that are providing services in the city?
Absolutely. Through the Richmond Opioid Task Force. We had our monthly Richmond Opioid Task Force actually just a couple hours ago. Almost standing room
I've
only.
been on those meetings. I know what you're speaking of.
So we work very closely with the Richmond Opioid Task Force, and there's a number of nonprofits and people in
Right.
this space there.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'm asking that question because we frequently have several organizations that are doing similar work, and not to suggest that it's redundant. I'm not suggesting that at all. But I am interested in making sure that we're fully aware, at least of what the city may be making investment in with those organizations, to make sure that we understand the linkage and the significance of keeping those linkage together.
Absolutely.
So if you would just keep that in mind and just keep us informed so that we know that if there are critical service providers that are linkage to the overall total initiative, that we are aware of that and we honor and respect those linkages as we make budget decisions and other kinds of decisions.
Absolutely. Will do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Madam Clerk, we have a public hearing on these papers.
Is there anyone here present today that would like to speak in support of items 3, 4, 5, or 6? Is there anyone here present that would like to speak in opposition of items 3, 4, 5, or 6? Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. Bring it back to the body.
Madam Clerk, I'd like to make a motion to move with a recommendation to council for approval.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. I second that motion.
The committee is voting on the motion to forward item 3, ordinance 2025-064, item 4, ordinance 2025-065, item 5, ordinance 2025-066, and item 6, ordinance 2025-067 to council with a recommendation to approve. Vice Chair Jones.
Aye.
Chair Robertson.
Aye.
That motion has been approved.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll move to agenda item number 7.
Item 7, ordinance 2025-068, to amend a reordained city code concerning the levy of tax on real estate to establish a tax rate of $1.16 for the tax year beginning January 1st, 2026. That paper is before the committee.
Yes, I'm here.
Did you want to speak to the paper before we have a public hearing?
Do you want to do a public hearing? Then I can. Or what you want me to do? What you want me to do? You want me to speak to it now?
I'm asking if you would like to speak to it before, but we can move to the public hearing and come back.
Yeah, let's do the public
Okay.
hearing. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, let's proceed with the public hearing.
Is there anyone here present that would like to speak in support of item 7? Is there anyone here present that would like to speak in opposition of item 7? Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. Bring it back to the body.
Ms. Trammell.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. I just want to say that the people are hurting in our city. And it's just not only in my 8th district, it's all over. And I know that when I put the paper last year, the citizens were saying, even though it failed, they were asking me not to forget them, to make sure that I brought it back again this year. And I was going to do 6 cents, but instead I said I'll just do for the 4 cents. Because like I said, we have a lot of development going on, and not only my 8th district, but all of the city. I have 7 different developers building in my district right now that I've never seen before. And to me, with all that money that's coming in, and then I see a lot of waste, and I see a lot of people that are hurting. They're trying to keep a roof. These are homeowners trying to keep a roof over their heads. Business owners, restaurants, all of that are trying to, stay in business. And they are asking me to do this because this is the right thing to do. So I'm going to ask my colleagues to support me because I know that we can find the money. We got plenty of money. We can find it. And this would help, like I said, all the citizens, all the homeowners in the city of Richmond. And you know what? I get so sick and tired of hearing, well, they live in your part. I'm not going to call it no subdivision, but they will say, oh, they live there. They have plenty of money. No, they don't. Because you don't realize that some of them have lost their husband, lost their wife. They only have one income now, and medical bills have gone up, groceries are gone up, utilities are gone up, Dominion Power's gone up, cable's gone up, everything gone up. And then people, like I said, they want a fixed income, and it's a hardship for them. And they don't want to give up their homes and go move into a nursing home. They want to stay in their home. So I think 4 cents is the right thing to do by all the citizens in our city, homeowners and business owners and even restaurants. Thank you. Would you like to co-pay to my paper?
Let me give it some thought, Ms. Gemma. With that in mind, do you have a motion or comments, Ms. Jones? Okay, so we appreciate, Ms. Trammell, your paper, and I haven't gotten over last year. It's still fresh in my memory. I think that it is important, though, that and I'm glad that this paper is before the committee at the time that it is. And what I would ask that if the administration, not at this time, would prepare impact analysis for us so that we would be able to know exactly the impact as it relates to this at the present time, and then also to get legal advice as it relates to this paper and when this paper is adopted and when it has impact on budgets and when, and what would happen when we actually get the land book values in that situation. So what I would like to do, Ms. Trammell, at this time, this is a paper that I think is very important to the entire council. And so what I would prefer to do at this time is to recommend, rather than to have a lot of conversation at this point and again at the council meeting, is to propose that we move this forward to the full body council with no recommendation at this time, and we get the analysis that we need so that the entire council can hear it and make a decision on their vote for that. If I can get a second to that motion.
Second.
All right, so we'll move forward, Ms. Trammell, with a recommendation of moving this forward to the full body.
And I just want to say thank you for keeping your word to me last year on my paper. You told me you were going to support me with the 4 cents, and you did. So I just want to say thank you, for all your help and your support. And I want to thank my colleague too, because I know that she wanted to do it. And now that, she's on this committee and she's, been on council more than a year, so she sees the struggle, not only in my district, but in her district, because the 6th, 8th, and 9th were all 3 together.
Thank you, Ms. Trammell. Madam Clerk, could you call the question?
The committee is voting on the motion to forward item 7, ordinance 2025-068 to council with no recommendation. Vice Chair Jones.
Aye.
Chair Robinson.
Aye.
That motion has been approved.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll move forward with the presentations that we have on the agenda. Mr. McKeithen, pleasure to have you with us this afternoon. And we appreciate you giving us all of the great insight that we need to move forward with helping to align our assessments to be aligned with our budget year.
Sure. Good afternoon, Council Chair Robertson, Councilwoman Jones, Councilwoman Trammell, and Councilwoman Gibson. I'm Richard McKeithen, the City Assessor here in the City of Richmond. And today, is it this? Left and right, okay. And today for your, we have a presentation about the realignment. Oh, I'm sorry. It was given in conjunction with Sabrina Joy Hogg and the finance team. And so it's a combination of slides between administration and the assessor's office. And so I will let her come up and get the presentation started, and I'll be jumping in and out as we go along. So thank you. I see.
I figured since you only called him, I could sit down.
We always appreciate our assessor. He keeps the firewall in place.
Good afternoon, Sabrina Joy Hogg, Senior DCAO for Finance and Administration. So the purpose is to give you an overview of the current real estate assessment cycle, why we are why we are changing the lineup and of the budget cycle and the assessment cycle. This is more of an informative presentation because Ms. Robertson, you asked for this presentation. So some of it may be repetitive because we've talked about some of it, but for the folks that are not aware, we can go through the background of it. So the budget cycle and the assessment cycle has been misaligned for a long, long time. So the way it happens is we start developing the budget in the fall, late summer, fall of every year, going into January. January starts the real hard work to tie down, assessments and projections. It is also the time that our assessor's office begins the reassessment for the upcoming year, for the next January effective date. So when we go to him from the budget office and say, can you give us your projection for 12 months from now? He says, well, I just started my reassessment. I'll give you my best guess right now. Until I know more, I can't give you a definitive answer. So he gives us a projection. We also have our financial staff and our economists work with him to get on the same page, and we've actually gotten a very good collaboration and process going, so we end up with the same number. We go back to him late January and says, what's changed? And he says, I've only had 3 more weeks. Number's kind of the same, Sabrina. Then we go back to him in February and say the same thing. Can you give us more? And he says, maybe. And then we go back to him again right before we shut down the budget at the end of February, early March, whenever it is. And we say, what is your final number? And that is what we use to do our projection. He has only a month and a half into the assessment cycle for the following fiscal year to give us that number. The real estate activity doesn't really take place, the hot activity doesn't really take place until the spring and summer. So he does his best, budget and finance do their best, and we give you a number. That's the proposed budget is predicated on that number. Remember, real estate tax revenue is the largest local source of revenue that we have. So we try to conservatively budget that because we don't want to miss the mark on that. In the past, we have, like I said, we've gotten much better at our projections. So in the past, it would produce these large variances at the end of the year, especially the years that we were coming out of COVID, because revenue was all over the place. So we had some very big misses there. The assessor's office would come out with double-digit increases when we had budgeted single-digit increases. But again, those times are over now. And the proposed budget in front of you is at a 6% increase, and both administration and assessor's office have agreed on that number. So that's one of the biggest issues of why we needed to change the cycle. The other issue is that we would be 5 months into the fiscal year, which has already started and spending has started to occur when the assessor's office completes its reassessment cycle and produces the notice. At which point, council then in October, November has a discussion about the real estate tax rate, which July 1 started a budget that was predicated on the current tax rate. So it put you all in a position of having to defend it 5 months after a fiscal year started, which meant if the number came in lower, we would be doing reductions. If the number came in higher, you would be trying to figure out how to spend it. Not a good place for any one of us to be. So moving on with the roles and responsibilities, you've seen this. The assessor's office assesses property. The administration prepares the annual budget in conjunction with the mayor's office, and the mayor introduces the budget in March. And then we collect real estate tax in January and in June. City Council adopts the budget in May and sets the real estate tax rate in November. Just for a little history of how we got here, again, this is years and decades of the same cycle, and it has never been aligned. It has not been a good process between the projections and the actual budget. In 2012, because the city was issuing revenue anticipation bonds to make payroll, that process needed to change. And so the city went to 2 billing cycles a year for real estate tax. It went to January and June collections. In 2024, after 6 months of discussions, a war room that we try to align the whole assessment cycle and the budget cycle, and there were some very tense moments in there, in that room, we got to the point where we have to change the assessment cycle if we want to align the two cycles together. We went down every single road that we could, try to change the fiscal year, which had its own series of implications. Said we could change the tax year, that had IRS implications. No matter which road we went down, there was a massive problem with it. This changing the assessment cycle to match the budget fiscal year from July 1 to June 30th was the least of the issues that we could come up with. And that is how, in spring of last year, council made the decision to realign the assessment cycle. And so I'm going to turn it over to Richie for a few slides, and then I'll take it back.
Okay, just to have a point of clarification, when she was talking about how they would call me, the phone calls were a lot more intense than what she just described. They were downright harassing, but anyway, I digress. So here we go. I'm just saying. Okay, so so this slide here is a slide that just basically says it's a realigning of the assessment cycle. Okay, so now the assessment will move ahead of budget like it's supposed to, where the actual assessor, myself, gets to do more work and have much more of a concrete analysis of the market before you guys start the budget process. It will begin the next reassessment, official reassessment, after what we're doing next September, will start in July. So it'll start on that fiscal. This is the move to the fiscal year from a calendar year. And as this third point says, move to a fiscal year versus a calendar year. That'll be the best way for us, based on the slide she just gave, the prior slide, that the most efficient way and the only way we could actually do anything with this whole scenario, because the city code is something that we can change. Okay, this slide here is merely a demonstration of matriculating the land book from where we are now to where we're going. So we'll be keeping the same land book through 2 fiscal years effectively, until we actually start with the new reassessment beginning in FY 2028. So what that means is we're going to send out assessment notices next September 1, and that land book will become effective as of January 1. And then we're going to matriculate from January 1 to July 1st. And then we're going to start the whole biennial process where we'll start the work from that July 1st all the way until the following May, where we'll send out assessment notices with a new market value and everything like that to become effective as of the next July 1. So this is a whole matriculation process to the fiscal year. Okay, yeah,
Ask you this question.
yes.
So the book value that we will get in September this year,
Mm-hmm.
based on the assessments, will be the same book value for the January, July, right?
Yes.
And then you start your work, but so the book value that we get in September this year
Mm-hmm.
is going to be the same for the next 2 years, is what you're saying,
Effectively,
right?
yes.
Say exact same.
Yes. Okay. So if you recall, in 2024, City Council adopted legislation to realign the real estate period from calendar to fiscal year. And those of you who are on council, when I first came back in 2017, may recall I gave you guys a memo saying this was one of our biggest challenges because, as she described, we were trying to set a budget before I even started actually doing assessment work. The realignment will begin in 2026. We'll be using the same land book, 26 and 27, but and the incremental real estate revenue will be minimal during that time period because we'll only be picking up things like new construction and renovation work and stuff like that. Ms. Hall?
Okay, you've heard most of why we did what we did, but once we do it, we should have a more precise revenue projection that we can put into the budget. It doesn't put council in a position of debating a tax rate 5 months after a fiscal year has already begun. And there may be a time that we can actually adopt the tax rate as other localities do right along with the budget. So the timeline for communication, because this has to be a lot of communication to the public, to mortgage companies, to loan holders, to real estate agents, title companies, all of it. It's a bit too soon right now to start that. I've talked to Laura Lafayette a while ago, talked through some of the timing with it because she is with the Realtors Association. It was very informative. We don't want to go too early because people will forget, but we want to time it correct with repeated communication out there. So we do plan in September of this year to start some communication with residents and businesses. Then we need to move on to the mortgage companies and the real estate agents and the community development organizations, meaning at your community meetings, and also the chamber and anybody else who we need to communicate to. We actually have a plan. We will bring on hopefully a comms firm that the Realtors Association would use so they can speak the same language. So we're not speaking to a public that doesn't understand what we're saying in terms of real estate assessment cycle change. All of that is in the works. We will shortly release a scope of work for companies to bid on and see what we need to do to communicate to all these different levels, community as well as businesses and realtors. So that's all coming. And again, the same land book that Richie is working on right now for January 2025 will be the same land book that we use in January 2026. That is why we say FY26 and FY27. 27 is where we go kind of flat with real estate revenue. All we will pick up are new improvements or new developments coming out of the ground. That is very minimal compared to what our growth has been over the course of time. So, open for questions.
So, okay, And I will entertain questions from Ms. Tramble and from Ms. Gibson as well, Ms. Jones. Because it's important that we are clear on this so that as we begin to share, we are accurate in our sharing. So the land book value that we get in September will be the land book value that we set the budget in March of 26, right?
Correct.
That would
With
be the
very
projected,
little-
that we projected revenue
Correct.
essentially. We're not talking pennies now, we're talking in generality. And then in March, assuming that we continue on the same cycle that we're currently using in March of 28, will we still be using for the budget the same book value?
In 28, no, you will be using a book value that he has started in July
Okay,
of the previous year.
so March 28 is when we will be having new book values that have been done for a full year. Okay, billing. So we're billing right now twice a year. We'll continue to do billing during the freeze on the assessment being done. The billing will continue to be done twice a year at that same book value, right?
Correct.
Right. Okay. Questions, Ms. Tramble?
Yes, thank
Ms.
you.
Tramble?
I don't understand something, and this is no fault of yours, Sabrina. This was all under the previous mayor, the step by step. But I thought they said something about it was going to go up like 6% across the board. Is that, it was going to go, then it was going to freeze or something, but it's still, Rich, you got to help me out because I know you're trying to explain it at the Brookbury meeting. But if it's
You want-
going, how, because we got 26, 27 as the president, as she just said, we're going to get hit again in December, no, June. We got to pay it in June. Then we're going to pay it again in December. So what is it going to be? What's it going to be based on? What we paid last year or this year? Or, because that's, I mean, people are confused. And then you say we're going to get it out in the open. We're going to let the citizens know, and we're going to let the mortgage companies know and all. How much money is that going to cost us to get all of, I mean, because we got to get this information out to about every business owner that owns property, every homeowner,
Okay, so
every landlord. This is going to be a mess. And I think you and I talked to you about it over a year ago, and because after we tried to explain it to people, and even at my 8th district meeting in front of almost 150 some people, they were more confused because they thought they didn't have to pay the taxes. And that's what they were telling the mayor Stoney in October of last year. So we won't be paying no more for about 2 years because you're going to freeze it. But
So
that's not,
Ms. Tramble,
I mean,
I know, but let's get the answers to your questions.
but that's.
Because it gets
I know it's
confusing
a
when we
lot, but
continue
I
to
mean-
ask other questions. So the first
Okay.
question so let's see if we can be, because I don't want to get confused. Okay, so your first question is whether or not there's a 6% increase in the book value
Across the board.
currently.
Okay.
So, let's answer that question.
Okay, so the projection is a 6% increase across the board in taxable real property for the notices that'll be going out September 1st of this year. So next September, I'm gonna do what I normally do. I'm gonna send out notices, and the projection of the taxable increase for those will be 6%. Okay.
So let me make sure that that's clear. Any additional questions, Ms. Trammell, specifically to the 6%
For this year.
for this
Wait,
year
for
and
June
next year?
September 1, my notice is now, It's a difference between, the tax bill and the assessment notice. My assessment notice is projected as of today to have a 6% across the board increase on taxable property. And those notices will be out September 1 as they have been the last couple years.
Okay.
Okay.
So with that, because we are not going to do any additional, we're going to give you a year to do assessments. So the projection right now is 6%. The next year, the amount will be the same.
It'll be the
as
same.
what it's going to be real for this September, right?
That's
So it'll be
correct.
2 years in a row. What's your other question, Ms. Trammell? Question.
How are we going to get the information out to the citizens? and
Okay,
to
how do we get the
mortgages
information out to the citizens?
And to the landlords?
So back when, let me just say this, in 2012, we did the same thing. When we switched the billing cycle, we went to a biennial cycle for assessment one time.
So
That is-
Ms. Hawk, I'm gonna tell you, like I just said to Ms. Trammell, let's just answer the question that's asked because it gets confused when we try to compare. So you mentioned something about speaking with the realtors
Mhm.
and different ones about putting together a strategy of how we're gonna get the message out to all taxpayers.
Madam
Can
President.
you be more specific as to how you're going to reach everyone?
Madam
in your
President.
Process.
I had to ask her, she said 2012. I want to know what exactly, because I was on council in 2012 when Dwight Jones did that. And then all of a sudden, I don't know exactly what
But
happened.
Ms. Trammell,
Can she
I'm
just-
trying to move us forward because what happened is the reason why we're having this conversation today. It's water over the dam, as people say. It's been done.
But we don't want it water over the dam for the second time.
Well, we've
we're in that position
made a
right now.
decision that we're going to freeze the rate for that period of time to give us an opportunity to align the assessments with the budget year. So your question is, how do we inform all of the taxpayers? Would you answer that question, please?
Sure. So we will be bringing on a comms firm to help us with this because it's got to be multifaceted. The messaging can't be the same for the community with mortgage companies, title companies. We've got to have different levels of how we communicate. So we will have to come out to community meetings. We're going to have to put it in newsletters, postcards. However we can reach the general public, we will need to reach the general public in a very simple way to explain this because this is complicated and they don't care about our dates and cycles. They just want to know when do they have to pay the bill and what is it, right? And don't increase it if you don't have to. So we have to figure out what is the balance there. Mortgage companies, title companies, escrow agents going to need a different type of communication where they need to know dates and times so they can calculate escrow and when payments are effective. So that's why we will bring on somebody who is well-versed, a company that is well-versed in this type of field to help us with that messaging.
When does that firm come on?
We haven't issued the scope of work yet. So we will issue that.
When are you planning to have them come on?
Well, definitely before September 25, hopefully by this summer, we'll
Okay.
have that firm on. And then we'll also do our internal communication with our communications office who will put out messaging and social media. It's not a one size fits all and it's not just one strategy.
Would this
And
be
so
under,
the other question that Ms. Trammell asked, I'm going to
Thank
cover
you.
you, Mr. Trammell.
I was going to ask, is this?
Was how much is all of that going to cost the city?
I don't know yet.
Give me an estimate,
Hopefully under 200,000.
under 200.
It'll be mailings, it will be however we can do it. I mean, this is the choice that we made, so
How
we're gonna
long
have
is
to
the
do it.
communication campaign? Is it for a good year and a half or
It will be.
at least a year and a half?
Mhm.
And an estimate of close to 200,000.
Correct.
All right.
Yes. Will it be the finance? Will it be under the finance department?
It's
or-
gonna be, it'll be communications, finance, assessor's office,
Thank
CAO's office. It will be everybody. It's gonna be multi-department.
Ms. Trammell?
Thank you.
You good?
Yes, I'm good. Thank you,
All right.
Sabrina.
Thank you very much.
Madam President.
Ms.
Thank you. So to be clear, you gotta break it down again, sorry. But what you're saying is, we're gonna get a bill, it's the assessment bill, it's gonna say 6% increase for in September, projected. Make sure you say those words.
Okay, now your assessment notice won't say a 6% increase. Your assessment notice could say, a larger or a small. The average across the board projection right now is 6% citywide on taxable real estate.
Mhm. So I think my concern is we've been talking all this time kind of about displacement and, people being priced out of their homes. And so now we're saying, which we are already there. So it's not like this is going to happen after this freeze. We are already there where people are being priced out of their homes. So we're saying, and I'm trying to get this for my own understanding. So when I have conversations with my neighbors who don't understand nothing about city government, and an email and a letter is not going to help them understand because they are basically being priced out right now. So how do we communicate to folks to say that you're going to receive an assessment based on whatever it normally is, or if the value has gone up, et cetera? You're gonna get that this year. You're gonna get that next year. And the following year, your taxes is going up, but you already kind of maxed out. Like, I'm trying to get some from you all on how do we know that this is already happening, is what I'm saying. We know that people are specifically in areas like the 9th district. We know that people are priced out. Homes are at like 374 right now, right? So how are we helping folks kind of stabilize or get a sense of, do we just say, don't spend no money, put some money to the side, like put it under the mattress? Like, how are we helping people fully understand what's to come?
That's a that's a difficult question to answer, honestly. We're going to have to get the messaging out about why would the change itself. But then part of that messaging has to be, hey, your assessment's going to come back up in 2028. So can you put some money aside now? That's a difficult conversation to have. And, people are not going to listen to it. Lord knows I ask you guys to put money aside, and that doesn't always happen either. So we're going to have to find the balance of how to explain that to folks. Because in 2028, he will have a brand new reassessment.
Right.
And at this point, we are projecting it to go up. I mean, we could have a recession and it goes down. I don't know, but right now in a 5-year projection, we are projecting it to go up. So which means that it won't completely double, but we will catch up in 2028.
Yeah. And so then this goes back to the same narrative of, what about if I don't have the money to put up? I'm making $65,000 a year. I'm in my home. You're telling me put money up. That part also seems out of sync. And I know that we're working in terms of like the Family Crisis Fund and, these, all these tools that we're trying to put in place. But I just don't, feel like this is going to be severe and could literally leave people on the street, like seriously.
And if you're talking about 28, that's going to happen. It's happening now.
That's my whole point.
Right.
So what I'm saying is, so we're not cutting the taxes. We had the grants. Those probably are already ran out. What else are we offering to be able to stabilize so that people can feel even an opportunity to put money away if need be? Like, how do we balance that? And I'm not saying that it's the city's full responsibility, but in a sense it is, because we are trying to get efficient, but we're getting efficient based on people's means of living that don't reflect where some people who can hold out for 2 years or, whatever. It's
So if we did not do this, they would have probably, in our projections, again, I can't tell you when, if a recession happens, what would happen. They would have had an increase in 2027.
Right.
That would have been coming anyway. What we're saying is, because we are realigning, you have 1 year of the same amount. But in 2028, it's going to come back up where it should be.
So
That's
I think the
crazy.
question, so I think we're dealing with two different
Yeah,
questions.
it is suitable.
So the assessment values are going to be what they are. None of us may like it, and many of us can't afford it, but they will be what they are. The fact that there is a tremendous need for Richmond to remain a competitive city to live in, and our means of being competitive, whether it's the rate that we charge per 100 or the support system we give to those who need assistance that cannot afford to pay because of their income. I think there are two different programs, Ms. Hawk, that we're talking about. There's an extensive educational program to inform people of what we're doing as it relates to assessments and their billing, and the idea of really preparing folk for after we have done the full assessment in our land, we get a new land book value. So that's one program that significant communication needs to be done. The other analysis that needs to be done is how is the city positioning itself to be able to support those that cannot pay their real estate taxes. And that whole programming, how much funding we put aside for that. I mean, it's one thing to tell the citizens to put your money underneath the mattress that they don't have. It's a different thing to tell the city to put your money under the mattress, which we don't have. So both of us need to, that's a whole different program, and they're two separate, they're interconnected, but they're two separate initiatives that we need to think about. And
You are absolutely right. It's two different issues. I can only address the issue of the assessment. And I don't want anyone to get ahead of themselves that we actually know what's going to be going on by
Because we don't know.
2028, because for all we know, things could just be the same. We don't know what's going to, this is why we have to try to do this, to try to get more predictability and more ability so you can plan. But the assessment increases or decreases were going to happen anyway. So I don't want anybody to think that it's large or small because we're doing
So
it.
let me ask you this question, Mr. McKeaton. We're going to give you an opportunity to do a full year, which we are way behind schedule in getting that done. And we're grateful that we've come to this place that we're going to make this, put forth this commitment to do that. But as you're doing that full year, as a part of your communication and who you communicate that with, and I'm only speaking from whether or not this is a presentation to council or to what extent we keep the community informed. So if you're 6 months into your year, you may have some idea whether or not it looks like we're going up or we're going down. I think we should do some incremental projection based on what you are seeing, okay? That will help everyone to be prepared to know that we're either going to be significantly less, we're going to be the same, or we're going to be significantly more. And a part of your strategy now, I would ask that we incorporate that into that strategy also, that during that year period of time, we have some incremental reporting as to what we see happening.
I'll be honest with you. By this September 1st, I'll know a lot more than I do now. It's only
Right.
April the 16th or whatever date it is, I'll know even more by next September. And
Right.
the country will know even more by as things get volatile every other day or every week. The country will even know more by September 1st in this first round of notices. And so, but I don't want to give the connotation that, you're going to get a tremendously huge whopper because we just don't know
Yes.
one way or another.
I respect that. I'm just asking that you keep us informed as
Sure.
you are informed. Ms. Jones?
And just one thing that is not getting ahead, I would like to just ensure that we are stock with planning. Because there are developments that are only being built in the 8th and the 9th district. And so there are houses that are being built. So yes, we may not know whether we go up or we go down, but I think we should also be mindful of what's already in the queue that's contributing to the increases right now. So I think I just want to make sure that everybody is, talking and making sure that we are aware that prices are going up in certain areas because there's only certain areas left to build. So that's my point of just trying to ensure that you all understand that every time I drive home, I see 2 new houses being built. Those houses each time are more and more. And so I just want to make sure that those are either being communicated to whomever they need to be communicated to, because again, yes, they could go down, they can go up. But I think having the awareness and being able to, as Ms. Robinson said, educate people on what is happening versus, hey, so that's my point, Mr. McKeithen, on that in terms of just I'm experiencing that as so you, Ms. Trammell, because we are the only ones in the 8th and 9th right now that are being built.
Live in Ms. Trammell's district, so I see it every day. So
yes, when I say that the incremental revenue for 27 is going to be very minor, it's going to pick up developments that are coming online. But that's on the budgeting side. That is not on the assessment side.
Thank you. I just a couple thoughts. I appreciate that Councilwoman Trammell continues to push us to demand more accountability on how our public dollars are spent. And if I'm reading the tea leaves, my sense is that we're discussing the timing for the calendar again because it's as a kind of a way of kind of roundabout speaking to why folks may not support the proposal, right? So, and I share the agreement. I agree that this year, because of the change in the calendar, making the change to a permanent change to a more long-term change to the rate, it's not the right time to do that. I agree. But I do think, what I believe Councilwoman Trammell's objective is, which is to force us to be more accountable, I think that the calendar change will do that, right? Because historically, what's happened is we kind of get a pass on really having a discussion about the tax rate because it's a moot point to talk about it when we have no idea, how what the assessments are going to be. So we've been able to basically keep our tax rate set at 1.25 forever and ever and ever and ever, because, forever as long as that's been, because it's like, well, we don't know what's going to happen, so we can't change it. And so as we've kept the tax rate the same, it's been for the past several years as personal, real estate taxes have gone up so significantly, what happens is then, we're like, we don't know what's going to happen. And then it's like, whoa, we had an extra $60 million, right? Like that's happened more than once when you look at the CAFR, right? I mean.
Is there a question, Ms. Gibson? Is there a question?
I'll get there.
Yeah, I want to make sure we get the question answered.
Well, so what I wanted to express is that I think that it is a good thing that we're changing the calendar. I think that once that happens, it will be, we will be more accountable to having a real discussion about the tax rate every year. And I guess the comment I wanted to add is that the kind of the question or about the questions that people have. I mean, I heard mention about needing to hire a company to provide guidance on messaging, and I wanted to question that. You know, I think we will figure it out. I think we've got lots of expertise on our communications team. I think that we also have a rainy day fund. If there is an emergency, we keep talking about it. I just want us to not be in to kind of perpetuate a lot of anxiety in a moment of time when there is a lot of uncertainty. And I think let's get through this year and take the next when it comes. But I think that, you know, changing the calendar ultimately is going to be a good thing for residents. And I'm thankful that we will be forced to have those discussions moving forward.
Thank you, Ms. Gibson. Thank you, Mr. Keithan. Appreciate it. And Ms. Hall, we will move to the next presentation on collective bargaining.
Good afternoon, members of council. Tyrone Alexander, Director of Human Resources. I am here today to present an overview of our collective bargaining and increased staffing costs that are being projected. Just a quick background, back in 2020, the General Assembly voted to remove the ban on collective bargaining for local governments in Virginia, allowing localities to choose whether they choose to adopt collective bargaining. On October 18, 2022, this body adopted collective bargaining for the city. In that collective bargaining ordinance, there were 5 collective bargaining units that were identified: administrative and technical, fire and emergency services, labor and trades, police, and the professional unions. Just a more quick update, back in July 2024, which started fiscal year 25, the city entered in 3 collective bargaining agreements with the administrative and technical union represented by SEIU, Virginia 512, the fire and emergency services union represented by IAFF Local 995, and then the police union represented by RCOP, or the Richmond Coalition of Police. We are currently right now assuming approval. The city will enter into agreements with our last 2 collective bargaining agreements. That will be the Laborers and Trades Union represented by Teamsters Local 322 and the professional union represented again by SEIU Virginia 512. Looking at our collective bargaining population, I want to kind of spend a couple moments on this slide. I think this slide is very important. If you go back and look at this slide, basically, if you look at total numbers of employees, about 75.5% of our employees will be part of a collective bargaining unit. If you go back and look at the administrative and technical unit, that agreement went into effect in July of 2022. We had 1,000 employees, a little bit over 1,000 employees that were part of that union that represented 79 job classifications in 20 departments. In our police union, that also went into effect July of last year. We have 539 employees that affected 3 job classes in 1 department. Our fire and emergency services contract also went into effect in July. 505 employees, 7 job classifications in 2 departments. In July, for our labor and trades, if that contract is approved by the union by council, that will affect 658 employees, 65 job classifications, and it will affect 9 departments. And for our professional union, we will have 268 employees representing 36 job classes and a total of 19 departments. So if you look at the total numbers of our population, we have 2,975 employees, or 75.5% of our employees that will be in a collective bargaining agreement with 23 departments being identified. I do want to make a caveat. There are some departments that are not part of the union, that cannot be part of the union due to the ordinance and how it was written. Those departments will include the city council units, anybody that's in city council and the associated departments reporting to city council, which includes the assessor's office, city attorney's office, the auditor, city council, chief of staff, inspector general. In addition to that, it will be the budget and strategic planning departments, the office of the mayor, and then office of human resources. Let's talk about the population and talk about the wage agreements. In the wage agreements that we have bargained for the first three, admin and tech, labor and trades, and professional unions, we did a 3.25% increase for fiscal year 25, 26, and 27, for the administrative and technical unit and plus an additional $500,000 in fiscal year 26 and 27 for market adjustments. Basically, what our department is doing on a regular basis is monitoring the market to make sure that we maintain our competitiveness within the local market. For labor and trades, we also identified a 3.25% for fiscal year 25, 26, and 27, plus $300,000 in market adjustments that will go into effect in fiscal years 26 and 27. For our professional union, 3.25% in fiscal year 25, 26, and 27, plus an additional $110,000 in fiscal year 26 and $140,000 in fiscal years 26 and 27 for us to do market adjustments if needed. For police and fire, the number is a little bit different. So we do have let me walk you through this to make sure we understand it correctly. Our wages are 103% of the prior year's average by our local localities. And then for fiscal year 26, it'll be 104% in 27. That was 102% in 25. For fire and EMS, same basic category, 103% of the prior year's average of the nearby localities. For fiscal year 26, 104% for fiscal year 27. We did 102% in fiscal year 25. For our employees that are in the emergency communications center, our dispatchers, they will get the 3.25% we have programmed. How that wage works for police and fire, if you look at the example here, we have the multiplier. What we would do is get the average salary of our three localities, which will be Hanover, Chesterfield, and Henrico. We will get an average of that figure of those three localities, multiply that factor by 103% in this case here, and that would be our starting salary for FY26. So that's kind of in a way of how we come up with that figure. Let's talk about the cost. If we go back and look at the cost over the last projected costs of the last couple of years, looking at the first couple of unions for sworn, we have the sworn officers, fire and EMS sworn, fire and EMS dispatchers, and the admin and tech unions. The total cost is $223 million, a little bit over $222.1 million. As you can see, the breakdown of those salaries for fiscal year 25. If this basically based upon the multipliers that we have in the contracts of fiscal year 26, you can see those numbers increasing from 223 to 223 million to 244 million, and then for fiscal year 26, that will 27, that will be 262.3 million. If we add, once again, fiscal year 25, we do not have any numbers for our labor and trades or professional unions because those unions have not been ratified yet by the council. But at projecting for FY26, we will add an additional $52 million for labor and trades. And then for fiscal year 27, $54.5 million. And then for professional union, it'll be $31.6 million. And then $32.8 million, which will give us a total of $349.77 million for our collective bargaining contracts during this time period. Couple caveats. This listing we did, it was based upon all active employees as of March of 2025. And in addition to that, just uses all funding sources that we have, which will include enterprise funds and other funding sources that we are utilizing to pay these salaries. Some other important costs that need to be acknowledged is support staff and other costs that are part of the collective bargaining agreement. Due to the agreement, we have right now 2 staff members that oversee our labor relations function, including their pay and benefits for fiscal year 25, about 362,000, 26, 374, and then 27, 386,000. We have professional fees to deal with outside attorney fees, arbitrators, mediation, et cetera. We have that baseline at 500,000 for the 3 years. And then for other operating costs, which includes the items that are around the slide, from managing union dues to donating leave for hours for people to work with the city, contract dispute resolution, station information, clothing allowances, gear and safety equipment, utilization of vehicles, labor management committees, medical and health-related services. We're projecting those costs to be for $1.1 million for fiscal year 25 to $1.3 million for fiscal year 27. So if you add that up, that's another $2.2 million that are costs that are used to support our collective bargaining efforts. And then there also the non-financial impacts that are associated with collective bargaining. It does not capture the hours that are dedicated by management staff to deal with collective bargaining tasks. This will include time for researching issues that will happen. Also, the collective bargaining process has reshaped our processes and management workloads, particularly within the Office of Human Resources, because we're the ones that's basically administering the contracts and dealing with the associated items that deal with collective bargaining. And then also our employees who are dealing with these issues are normally exempt employees. So there is no overtime for these folks. So we just work until we get the job done. I want to pause there to see if there's any questions that the council has relative to the collective bargaining numbers.
Thank you so much for your presentation. One quick question. So based on the code section 2, dash 1301.20, it asks and it requires the mayor to conduct a review of collective bargaining and how well it's working, and to also submit a report by July 25th, 2025. Where are we on that?
Okay, well, right now we are in the midst of finalizing our bargaining agreements. We're right now in the midst of getting ready to start pulling together that data so that we can get that report prepared. So we're right now in the midst of starting to prepare that data.
So are we on pace to meet that requirement?
For the July, yeah, we'll be ready. We'll have the department met by July.
I'll make it a question,
All righty.
although I'm not aware of a only question rule, but
Thank you.
my question is this. So I appreciate the presentation. And so I really see a huge benefit in collective bargaining for residents. And at our government ops committee, we talked about the change over time in the vacancy rate and the turnover rate, and we also looked at overtime, and those are areas where I see the true benefit of why the city made that change. It's really in those numbers. The vacancy rate went down over from fiscal year 24 to 25 from 16% to 5.5%. The turnover rate went down from 15.5% to 11%. And when those numbers go down, we see less overtime, we see better services for residents, and we see less need for outsourcing, right? I mean, when there are jobs that are empty, oftentimes we don't have a choice. We have to hire somebody else to do the work, and that comes at a cost. And so while I appreciate the changes in salaries, right, that will come through collective bargaining, I wonder, is there a way that we can quantify the savings that we get through the vacancy rate going down, through the turnover rate going down, and the reduction in needing to outsource and in overtime? I mean, those are really where the savings are. I mean, I would venture that it to a certain degree it really becomes a wash, if not really a net benefit for for the city through the enhancement of services, more consistency, and by, many of the folks who work for the city are our residents, and for them to be supported is also a net benefit as well.
I thank you for your question. I think two things that we can do. One, I believe over the last couple of years of our ARM initiative, Attract, Motivate, and Retain initiative, in which we made a lot of changes to our employee benefit programs and been a lot more becoming towards an employer of choice, have done a lot in helping us with reducing our overall turnover rate and also, turnover rate. We've had a number of employees who previously worked for the city who have come back to the city due to the changes that we've made over the last couple of years. Also, that includes changes to our benefit programs, our tuition assistance program, and a number of other items that we've rolled out over the last 2 years. Now, as for the particulars that you asked for, we'll have to take that by referral to figure out how we can come up with that information that you expressed to kind of understand that change over change by year.
Thank
We'll
you.
take that by referral, sure.
Thank you.
Very good, Ms. Gibson. Thank you very much for the presentation. We're glad to hear that things are still on track.
Yes, ma'am.
And we'll look forward to the other two collective bargaining agreements being finalized.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, what is also on my agenda for today?
We have a board vacancy packet.
Right?
Good afternoon, Pamela Nichols, Council Management Analyst. How are you all doing this afternoon? So the board report before you depicts the vacancies that are projected through August of this year. And so I'm gonna just dive right into it. For the Minority Business Enterprise and Emerging Small Business Advisory Board, we have a reappointment application from Adrian Whitaker as a representative of a lender or business other than a minority business enterprise. And then we have an application from Shamika Bowen as a representative of a minority business enterprise. And then for the Participatory Budgeting Steering Commission, for a person who resides in a council district located south of the James River, Miss Tiffany Gunn. She does meet that criteria as far as her residence, but I will note that she does not indicate anything on her application that she possesses qualifications maybe that the body could be looking for. So. Yeah, okay. All right, so Miss Gunn, she does meet the criteria as she resides in a council district south of the James, but looking at her application, I also wanted to note that she does not indicate on her application that she possesses any of the other qualifications that they may be looking for.
Ms. Jones?
I'm making a motion. I for the council for recommendation to approve.
That's for the participatory budget. And for the minority, do we have two vacancies?
Yes, we have one vacancy for a representative and another one, well, both for representative, one for a lender.
Right, so your motion is to recommend Whitaker
Yes.
and Boyer for minority business and Ms. Gunn with,
Yes.
all right, I'll second that. Do we need to vote on that, Madam Clerk?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, motion, I second it. All for the question. Thank you, Ms. Pam. Appreciate it.
The committee is voting on the motion to forward the board recommendations as stated to council with a recommendation to approve. Vice Chair Jones,
Aye.
Chair Robertson.
Aye.
That motion has been approved.
Thank you.
What else do I have on the agenda, Madam Clerk?
No, there is a staff report that was presented to you, but that's about it.
Mr. Perkins.
Thank you, Madam.
Any additions?
You have my preparation memo in advance of this. I will note I heard you ask for an analysis of Ms. Trammell's real estate tax paper. I believe that would be in request to be complete prior to the meeting on April 28th. Is that correct? So when we were discussing ordinance 2025-068 from Ms. Trammell related to the real estate tax, I believe I heard you request both a fiscal analysis and a legal analysis. And I want to just verify that that's our request to be completed prior to the date it's on the agenda for Monday, April 28th.
That's correct. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Perkins, for staying on top of that and making sure that we get that.
Thank you. And I will note for everyone else that this body is scheduled to meet again in May. And the agenda includes a discussion of revenue projections, methodology, and economic development plans and pipeline. And I'll confer with Ms. Joy Ogg's office to make sure those are prepared and in line with your expectations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your support. Thank you, Madam Clerk, and the total staff of the clerk for your support and helping us to have these meetings. Ms. Trammell, appreciate you being here today to deal with your paper, and attorney's office. We're always appreciative of you being here, and of course, all of the administration and Mr. Pantley, my dear friend, former council person that led us and got us, helped to get us where we are today. So I want to express my appreciation for the work that you've done long before, and to all of the staff that is here today to help us through this important business that we are charged with doing on behalf of all of the taxpayers. With that, this meeting is adjourned.